Unit 1. Glimpses of Greatness. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Success is undoubtedly the fruit of perseverance. It requires great hard work, patience, dedication, and motivation to achieve success. Some are born great. Some achieve greatness. Some have greatness thrust upon them. William Shakespeare. Great personalities of all times. These are men and women who have changed the history of the world through their courage, perseverance, character, and action. Socrates. It is considered that Socrates was born in 470 BC and died in 399 BC. He was a classical Greek philosopher credited as one of the founders of Western philosophy, and as being the first moral philosopher of the Western ethical tradition of thought. An enigmatic figure, he has left behind no writings, and is known chiefly through the accounts of classical writers writing after his lifetime, particularly his students Plato and Xenophon. Plato. From 423 BC to 348 BC. Plato was a classical Greek philosopher, mathematician, student of Socrates, writer of philosophical dialogues, and founder of the Academy in Athens, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. Along with his mentor, Socrates, and his student, Aristotle, Plato helped to lay the foundations of Western philosophy and science. Plato influenced a whole range of subjects from philosophy to maths, logic, and ethics. Aristotle. From 384 BC to 322 BC. A Greek philosopher, natural scientist, and polymath, who made extensive studies into the world around us. Aristotle's investigations and studies developed the foundations for Western intellectual studies. His writings formed the basis for much knowledge of the first millennium. Living in the same time period as Plato and Alexander the Great, Aristotle helped lay the foundations for Western civilization through his wide range of intellectual and scientific studies. Karl Marx, 1818 to 1883. Marx is founder of Marxism, an influential political science, which was highly critical of capitalism. The ideology of Marx and communism shaped the 20th century. Karl Marx was born on 5 May 1818, in Western Germany. Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, Jr. was born in Atlanta on January 15, 1929. He was one of America's most influential civil rights activists. His passionate, but nonviolent protests, helped to raise awareness of racial inequalities in America, leading to significant political change. Martin Luther King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work towards social justice. On April 4, 1968, King was assassinated. Nelson Mandela. 1918-2013. Nelson Mandela was a South African political activist who spent over 20 years in prison for his opposition to the apartheid regime. He was released in 1990. In 1994, Mandela was elected the first leader of a democratic South Africa. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, jointly with F.W. de Klerk, in 1993 for his work in helping to end racial segregation in South Africa. He is considered the father of a democratic South Africa and widely admired for his ability to bring together a nation, previously divided by apartheid. Nelson Mandela is one of the most admired political leaders of the 20th and 21st century for his vision to forgive and forge a new rainbow nation. Napoleon Bonaparte. August 15, 1769, 5 May 1821. Later known as Emperor Napoleon I, was a French military and political leader who is considered one of the most influential figures in European history. Born in Corsica and trained as an artillery officer in mainland France, he rose to prominence under the First French Republic. He distinguished himself as a military commander fighting in Italy. In 1799, Bonaparte staged a coup d'état and installed himself as first consul. 5 years later he crowned himself Emperor of the French. Sir Isaac Newton, 1643–1726, was an English mathematician, physicist, and scientist. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential scientists of all time, developing new laws of mechanics, gravity, and laws of motion. His work Principia Mathematica, 1687, laid the framework for the scientific revolution of the 17th century. A great polymath, Newton's investigations also included areas of optics, religion, and alchemy.
Alexander the Great, 356 BC 323 BC, was perhaps the greatest military commander of all time. During one decade, he conquered all of the known world, leaving one of the world's most extensive empires. Alexander was born in the northern Greek kingdom of Macedonia, in July 356 BC. His parents were Philip II, king of Macedon, and his wife, Olympias. He died at the young age of 33. Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 and died in 1506. Columbus was an Italian explorer, colonizer, and navigator. He is remembered as the principal European discoverer of the Americas, and he helped bring the Americas to the forefront of the Western consciousness. His discoveries and travels laid the framework for the later European colonization of Latin and North America. Galileo Galilei was born in 1564 and died in 1642. He was an Italian astronomer, scientist, and philosopher, who played a leading role in the scientific revolution. Galileo improved the telescope and made many significant discoveries in astronomy. His findings encouraged him to speak out for the Copernican view that the Earth revolved around the Sun. However, his views were considered heretical, and he was placed under house arrest. His greatest scientific works included two new sciences about kinetics and the strength of materials. Galileo was born in Pisa, Duchy of Florence, Italy in 1564 to a poor but noble family. Leonardo da Vinci was born in 1452 and died in 1519. He is one of the world's greatest thinkers, artists, and philosophers. Seeking after perfection, he created rare masterpieces of art such as the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. In addition to art, Da Vinci studied all aspects of life from anatomy to mathematics and astronomy. His far-reaching investigations and discoveries sought to show an underlying unity of the universe. Da Vinci is considered to be a key person in the birth of the European Renaissance, which saw an emergence of new ideas, scientific discoveries, and the creation of beautiful art. Leonardo was born an illegitimate son of a Florentine noble and peasant woman. He grew up in Vinci, Italy. In his formative years, he developed a love of nature and from an early age began to display his remarkable academic and artistic talents. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, born on January 27, 1756 and died on December 5, 1791, was one of the most influential, popular, and prolific composers of the classical period. He composed over 600 works, including some of the most famous and loved pieces of symphonic, chamber, operatic, and choral music. Mozart was born in Salzburg to a musical family. From an early age, the young Mozart showed all the signs of a prodigious musical talent. By the age of 5 he could read and write music, and he would entertain people with his talents on the keyboard. By the age of 6 he was writing his first compositions. Mozart was generally considered to be a rare musical genius, although he was also diligent in studying other great composers such as Haydn and Bach. Albert Einstein, Albert Einstein is one of the most celebrated scientists of the 20th century. His theories on relativity laid the framework for a new branch of physics, and Einstein's equation on mass-energy equivalence is one of the most famous formulas in the world. In 1921, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for his contributions to theoretical physics and the evolution of quantum theory. Born in Germany to Jewish parents, Einstein settled in Switzerland and then, after Hitler's rise to power, the United States. Einstein was born in 14 March 1879, in Ulm, the German Empire.
Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Gandhiji was born on October 2, 1869, in Porbandar, India. On the death of his father, Mohandas travelled to England to gain a degree in law. On returning to India he took up the leadership of freedom struggle. Gandhi successfully instigated a series of non-violent protest. He won India its freedom from the British. He is known as the father of the nation. He was assassinated in January 30, 1948.
What is the secret behind greatness? Greatness is achieved through tireless hard work, perseverance and confidence, the courage to conquer, the vision of future, positive thinking or optimism, focus on commitment, self-reliance, encouragement and support of others, timely action to achieve the goal, learning from your mistakes and breaking out of one's comfort zones, are all the way to greatness and glory.
Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809 and was assassinated on April 15, 1865. Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States of America during its worst period of crisis, and perhaps its greatest moral, constitutional, and political crisis, the American Civil War. Born in a humble family in Kentucky, he rose to greatness and glory through tireless hard work and great vision. He was largely self-educated. He abolished slavery through Emancipation Proclamation. He is also known under the nickname Rail Splitter. Abe's first speech. Abraham Lincoln is one of the greatest of American statesmen. He is known for his celebrated speeches. Here is the story of his first speech as a little boy. Abe made his first speech when he was a boy, going barefoot, his trousers held up by one suspender, and his shock of hair sticking through a hole in the crown of his cheap straw hat. Abe, in company with his rail-splitting companion Dennis Hanks, attended a political meeting, which was addressed by a typical stump speaker. One of those loud-voiced fellows, who shouted at the top of his voice and waved his arms wildly. At the conclusion of the speech, which did not meet the views either of Abe or Dennis, the latter declared that Abe could make a better speech than that. Whereupon, he got a dry goods box and called on Abe to reply to the campaign orator. Little Abe threw his old straw hat on the ground, and, mounting the dry goods box, delivered a speech which held the attention of the crowd, and won him considerable applause. Even the campaign orator admitted that it was a fine speech, and answered every point in his own oration. Dennis Hanks, who thought Abe was the greatest man who ever lived, was delighted, and he often spoke of how young Abe got the better of the trained campaign speaker. Why Lincoln is called the Rail Splitter. Like other young boys on the frontier, Abraham Lincoln helped clear land, build fences, plant, tend crops, and care for livestock. As he grew older, his father regularly hired him out to other farmers. The wages Abraham brought home helped keep the family afloat. At age 21, he left his father's home to seek a life away from farming. In May 1860, Illinois Republicans met to select their presidential nominee. Lincoln's supporters staged a demonstration in the meeting hall, which they capped off with Dennis Hanks, Lincoln's cousin, carrying in two fence rails split by Lincoln and Hanks. Suspended from the rails was a banner that read, "Abraham Lincoln, the rail candidate for president in 1860."